My name's Jamie Hawkes. I'm here today on behalf of Supra Perfecta, who are manufacturers of hypochlorous acid. Hence, the title of what we're doing doesn't work on there, okay? So we are looking at replacing alcohol-based hand sanitizers with a new option. I'm calling it new, even though some of you already know the product. And I am going to apologize at this point because I feel like I'm teaching people to suck eggs. You guys know far more about hand hygiene and the situations and your daily efforts than I do. All I get is complaints from my sister, who is actually a senior sister at the QE in Birmingham, so I get secondhand moaning information. So I'm going to move forward. Why does hand hygiene matter? It's a fairly obvious thing. Hands are the primary vector for transmission, as we all know. And as part of COVID, the general public actually finally learned that clean hands are a good idea. Since then, I've noticed people don't actually sanitize as much as we did during COVID. So yes, how does it transfer? You all know this. Transfers to patients, surfaces, equipments, healthcare workers, ambulances, everything, okay? So poor hand hygiene, obviously poor hand hygiene contributes to hospital-acquired infections, and if you get good hand hygiene, it obviously, I'm saying obviously a lot, it breaks that transmission chain. And in the world of hand sanitizers, alcohol is number one. It is the gold standard. Even though it doesn't work against C. diff or norovirus, it is still the number one choice in many, many cases. Most of you who work in healthcare have protocols in place in terms of hand sanitization and cleaning, etc., etc. And you guys all have SOPs, but maintaining compliance with those SOPs is difficult. It is in any industry, but especially in your industry. And it can be from any number of reasons, and I've just highlighted 4 quick ones here. So the infrastructure could just be lack of access. You could be in a room that doesn't have any, which could just be down to poor product placement. Could be high workload areas. It could be stressful situations. It could just be many people. You could run out of things. Another one could also be the behavioural variability. Now, we see this quite often when people transfer from one unit to another. Things can be different. It happens. You know, people are human, and human error and human behaviour is always one of the big things. Technique. Well, technique's interesting. I've been asked several times this morning, how much should I put on your hands? You put enough on. Everybody has their own protocol. Some people say a little swimming pool, some people say 2 sprays, some people say X, Y, Z. I'm not going to tell you, you can tell me because you know better. But one of the biggest thing here is actually the technique. Once it's on, what do you do? And this was actually a nice a document that was published by the CDC and Gojo, actually, back in the day, which sort of highlights people miss things on their hands. And it's actually, I've seen a training technique where we actually put a dye in certain products, and you'll put it on your hand and see how it actually covers. And it is amazing to see how many people actually don't cover the entire part of their hands. So this is just one of those things. And it is a persistent problem because you still have problems. It would be nice if you didn't, but you do. So alcohol, as I say, is the number one. It is the gold standard. What are the problems with alcohol? Well, if you have large volumes, you do have a flammability issue if you're storing cases of this stuff. But also, if you are in certain situations, having a flammable product is not a good idea. So certain mental health situations or prisons, for example, it's not a good idea. And as I mentioned, you do get those rare but reported misuse cases, especially important for mental health situations because of the ingestion concerns. Alcohol, anyone who's ever used alcohol hand gels for a period of time knows what it does to your skin. It makes your hands dry. It can be very unpleasant. And over the last few years, I'm going to say, there is an increased rise in reporting of contact dermatitis. Now, contact dermatitis, my sister actually, yesterday, told me that in their unit, they're having a lot of staff having to go to occupational health to report the contact dermatitis, which then results in products, other products, special products, being purchased. Obviously, these things are done to help the staff, help the clinical staff, but it has a cost. And realistically, we'd like you to not have the problem in the first place. And that's where we're coming from today. So what does that mean for the NHS? Okay, you do have everything's going to come back to a financial burden. You get staff who are off duty, which means you have rota gaps, which means you get temps in, et cetera, et cetera. And the alternative products are obviously a lot more expensive than normal hand gels. So there is a burden to the NHS on here. You also have a different issue with alcohol-based hand gels, and that is the pathogen challenge. And I'm going to mention two, because this morning I've been asked by every single person who's come to speak to us, does it kill this? Well, yes, it does, actually. That's the whole point. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, okay? Alcohol hand gels don't kill C. diff, and they don't really kill norovirus. Everything in moderation. If you soak your hands in this stuff for hours, it might do. But we're all talking about contact times, okay, in real life. So I'm not going to go through that. You all know the problems here, and you know the result of this problem. You can have, if you get outbreaks, which again, I know are occurring at the moment, it causes a huge problem for you in many different ways. So we're looking at hypochlorous acid as an alternative, which many of you will know hypochlorous acid. Some of you have heard of it. Some of you have used it in the past. Some of you probably like it. Some of you probably hate it. And this variation, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 minutes, you'll understand why there's been this variation in the past. Okay? So I get you pip points on these. Hypochlorous acid, being a bit chemically here now, so I'm a nerd. This is my background. It is a really simple molecule. That probably doesn't mean anything to most of you, but this does. That's water. That's just to highlight how simple this molecule is, okay? It's just one molecule, one atom different to water. Really nice and simple. But that simple structure is the reason that this actually works, okay? So hypochlorous acid is well known. It's safe. It's been around for about 200 years, give or take. It occurs naturally in the body as a defense mechanism from infection. And as I say, yeah, 200 years ago, and then it was even used in World War I and World War II as a wound sanitizer. So it's been around, it's had a history. Nowadays, if you go to the literature, you'll find it's reported as being antimicrobial, antiviral, antiseptic, disinfectant, and wound cleaner, and lots of other different things as well, even for use in the US on food. So, you also have heard of bleach. You probably all use it in your homes. Hypochlorous acid and hypochlorite bleach are related. I've had a few people today say, why is it different? Well, it is different. It's a different species. Now, I'll do that. Okay. As I've showed earlier, the hypochlorous acid is small. It has no charge, which means it can penetrate cells. So when you've got a pathogen, most, for example, a bacteria will generally have a negative charge to its cell. So if you try and put negatively charged hypochlorite, it doesn't go in. You've all played with magnets. You all know what negative and negative, it repels. The hypochlorous acid doesn't do that. It is non-charged, so it penetrates into a cell. And once it's in a cell, it then targets the DNA of the pathogen and oxidizes it and destroys it. That's how that works. Now, I should also say that hypochlorite will work sometimes, but not against every bacteria and not in the time spans that we're looking at, partly because it is always repelled. Okay, so a little bit of science behind it, but for those of you in the audience who are then saying, yes, but what about spores and what about yeasts? It's not the same, but it is similar. Because it's small, it still penetrates, and then it aggregates all the proteins and then oxidizes the proteins, so it essentially destroys. So yes, bacteria, viruses, yeasts, spores, it does all of them. And for me to stand here and say it does everything, as one of my colleagues will tell you, I'm the most negative person that you can imagine, and I have to be convinced, okay? And I'm only convinced because I've seen the test data and I've done the experiments. I've even played with this in my lab, so I know it does work. So, our hypochlorous acid. As I mentioned, you've probably heard about hypochlorous acid, so why is ours different? Well, it's different for a number of reasons, but the first reason is the most important, the way it's made. So most hypochlorous acid that you've seen over the last probably 10 years or so, most of it is made using an electrolysis process, which basically means that you're flowing electricity through a solution of things, and you produce hypochlorous acid. The negative side to doing that is you end up with a very complex mixture of products, which includes the hypochlorous acid, but lots of other things as well. So then they have to add lots of stabilizer salts to make it stable, which is usually a 6-month stability at best. Our system is different, so we make it using a proprietary chemical synthesis. So this is actually very different to anything else that's being made out there. But by doing it this way, we end up only producing hypochlorous acid and water, which is good because it's in water. We can make it at very high we call very high concentrations, because it's 32,000 ppm. And that's very high compared to what else could have been done in the past. And I do know that there are some machines that go a little bit higher than 500 ppm if you use it immediately. But for most intents and purposes, it would be 500 and a much higher purity. And that's what drives our stability. And I've been asked again this morning, that's why this slide's in here, how is our product stable when everybody else's isn't? Well, it is the way it's made. That's the simple answer. Proprietary chemical synthesis makes high purity, high concentration, doesn't need the stabilizer salts, therefore it is stable in nature, okay? So, and the last point, yes, was corrosivity. Now, our hypochlorous acid isn't corrosive, neither is the competitors, in all honesty, but the stabilizer salts in the competitors' products are corrosive. So it does form a problem if you're going to put this through, for example, fogging machines or spraying machines. So, yeah. So because all this other hypochlorous acid exists, to make sure that you know that ours is different, they came up with this logo, which when you see this on our products, you know that it's actually got our product in instead of other people's, okay? So this is going to be our intel inside, if you like, okay? This is to differentiate ourselves. Now, because the hypochlorous acid can be made at such high concentrations, this gives us as a company great opportunity to supply lots of different products to lots of different industries, actually. But primarily, so the 32,000 ppm, this is actually going to be used as water disinfection. It kills Legionella. It kills Legionella extremely quickly, and even down at 1 part per million, which has been trialled in various places, but including a very large UK facility. And it is very good. It has also been approved by the UK Drinking Water Inspectorate. So we can actually add our product into drinking water down to, I think it was 3 ppm, but that's perfectly acceptable. We've also got, for example, a 4,000 ppm product that we will sell for other uses. We have a 675, we probably have a 1,000 and a 2,000 for various different uses around the world. For example, today we're showing you 1,000 ppm, which is what we have in our ActiPure disinfecting hand rub. And I'm sure a few of you have already tried it. It feels quite nice, but realistically, you don't care if it feels nice or it does. What you care about is, does it work? Well, yeah, it does. That's the point. So how's ours different? So I have here a little comparison with the alcohol and also with a quat-based hand gel. Now, not many people like the quat-based hand gels, but they do exist for certain applications. So I have put it in there just to give you an idea of what they are. As I say, ours has 1,000 ppm of hypochlorous acid, which is roughly the same active level as the quat-based products, but the alcohol ones are obviously usually 70 to 90%, even 60 to 90%. Now, you might think 1,000 ppm sounds a lot, but just to put that in comparison, 60 to 90% is actually 600 to 900,000 ppm. So no, it's not particularly strong, it's just super effective. Now, is it broad spectrum? Yes, it is broad spectrum. And I've even said that alcohol is broad spectrum, even though it doesn't kill norovirus and C. diff. It's still considered broad spectrum. which is why it is still considered the gold standard. Skin friendliness, come to the stand, put it on your hands, and tell me what you think. It is friendly. It doesn't dry out your skin. It doesn't do what alcohol-based hand gels do, so your skin doesn't feel the same, okay? For continued use, this will not do the same thing. And I've also added the flammability because it doesn't contain alcohol. So that is one of the big benefits, apart from the fact it works very, very well, is that it is alcohol-free. Lots of things here, as I mentioned before, a lot of useful reasons why it can be used in mental health settings and other vulnerable settings. This is, we think, a very good reason for you to use it. So this is the bit that you've all been waiting for. What does it kill? Well, so far it's been tested against these particular species. The ones that you are most interested in are the C. diff and the norovirus. This also includes the EN 1500 bacterial hand rub and also the, the 17430 bacterial hand rub. You'll notice the contact times on here. That's because this is what is required from the EN standard. Somebody asked me yesterday, how quickly does it actually work? We have test results that show that it will work very, very quickly, but we can't claim anything less than 30 seconds because that's how long it takes them to do the test. So if you see people say it does it in 10 seconds, we might internally know that it will, but it is what it is. I will not say anything to you less than what I can prove using an external test lab. Okay, so it does it. And again, the two hand rubs, they are two 30-second applications because that's what the EN test asks for. Would it work quicker? Well, yeah, probably, but we can't prove that because that's not what the test is. One more thing, just to say, we know that this does kill, excuse me, Staphylococcus aureus. It is currently in test for MRSA. There's no reason why it won't pass MRSA. We just want to have that tick box so we can come to you saying, yes, it's been done on MRSA. We know from other results we have on our liquids that 675 ppm, for example, will work against human coronavirus, MRSA, and anything else that we've tested. So we have no reason to suspect it won't, but I don't have those results to show you at this point. So at the moment, this is what we have, and this is what we have on the table upstairs, so come and have a try. We have the pouches, which will go in the wall dispensers. We have the 500ml bottles, and we have the 75ml bottles. There will be a Tottle bottle coming soon, potentially, and I hate to say it, but there might also be some wipes coming at some point this year. Still to be worked on, but yes, they are nearly ready. So if you are experiencing problems, microbial contamination anywhere, come and talk to us. We'll be keen to find people who want to try the liquids. For example, water disinfection is a really big thing for me personally. But the hand wipes, come and ask us, come and talk to us. We're there.